My name is J.R. Babineau. I am the Senior Research Manager for Building Sciences here at Johns Manville, and today we're going to talk about fire resistance of insulation. Fire resistance of all building materials is really important to life safety and building safety, and that includes insulation. Some insulation materials are what we call non-combustible, like mineral wool or fiberglass, and these materials don't burn and they don't actually then contribute to the spread of a fire. Other materials, like foam plastics, actually do burn, and so for those, we need to add fire retardants to those materials, and we look at their fire performance a little more carefully. The most common fire properties that we care about for insulation and really all building materials are what's called the flame spread index and the smoke developed index. And those properties are determined by test method ASTM E84. And this is really just a large 24-foot long furnace that we subject whatever the building material is to a known fire, and we essentially just measure how does that flame spread move along the material during the test, and then we also measure the smoke that's produced by that material during that test. So other insulations like spray foam or foam sheathing boards that actually can burn often need then additional testing to really show how they perform in a building. One of these tests is called NFPA 286, and this is what's called a room corner burn test. What it's meant to measure is whether or not a material, usually a plastic material, can be left exposed in a room without being covered by drywall. And to determine that, what we measure is whether or not the material contributes to flashover in the room, which is a point where the room is completely engulfed in flames. And ideally, that will take at least 30 minutes for that to occur or longer for a material to be able to be left exposed. So another really important large-scale fire test that we need to do for foam plastic insulations is the NFPA 285 test, which is actually a test for an external wall system. And the idea behind this test is that if we have a multi-story building, we don't want the wall system to allow a fire to move from one story up to the story above. And so this test actually measures the performance of the whole wall system, not just the insulation material, to see whether or not it prevents that flame spread from occurring. And finally, true fire resistance is measured by a test method called ASTM E119. And what this test is really determining is we take, again, a whole wall system or a whole floor ceiling assembly with insulation and all the other parts, and we expose it to a fire condition on one side, and we want to see how long it takes for some sort of failure criteria to occur on the other side. And that can be fire breaching through the actual wall, it could be just that a certain spot gets too hot, or potentially structural failure. And this sort of a test is really important, anytime we have areas that we need to protect from fire. Think things like stairwells, or maybe like areas of a hospital or a school where people need to shelter in place. That becomes a really important test for that sort of assembly. So these fire tests can be pretty dramatic, especially the large-scale ones. But the important thing to remember is that by putting our insulation materials through these rigorous tests, making sure that they meet all of the criteria that they need to meet, JM is doing our part to make sure that all of the materials that we're putting out into the market contribute to an overall safe building.